If you just started your graphic design journey, you have a lot to learn. We all have been there. So in this video, we're going to talk about 5 mistakes that most designers often make or they normally make, and most importantly, how to avoid them. If you're a beginner graphic designer, you cannot avoid mistakes because obviously it's part of the learning process. But gladly, if you take note of some of these things that we are going to talk about, you're going to skip that process. So let's get into the video. Hey everybody, my name is Innocent and I've been a designer for almost 8 years now, and I'm going to share some of my experiences with you. All right, so some of these things that I'm going to share are based on my experiences and experiences from people that I've mentored and I've taught over the years. So let's jump into the first one: not understanding the brief. If you're a very beginner, maybe you might not understand what a brief basically is, but in a nutshell, it's just the exchange that you have with a client before you start a project. So it can be in written form, sometimes it can even be verbal, but either way you need to understand and you need to be very clear of what you are designing. Sometimes the mistake most beginners do is that they really want to get right into the project. They are excited that they got their first client, or they got a client after so many months of not getting a client. So the person comes and they say that I want you to create like a logo for me or a flyer for me, and they just jump right into the software and start doing it. If you do this, you're obviously going to stress yourself because you don't really get to the bottom part of what the person wants you to design for them. So you should ask important questions like, why are you designing this particular logo or flyer? Who are you designing for? These are very important questions to ask when you're starting out a project. And before you feel bad about yourself for asking too much questions, which I used to do so much, because I feel like when I ask too much questions, the person might think like, yo, don't you really want to work on this project? Just get onto the project. As no, save yourself the stress. Ask as many questions as possible, because this is going to save you a lot of stress. Also, once you're done with the discussion, or if it is a written brief that was sent to you, make sure that whatever terms or agreements that you agreed, you read it back to the client so that they are on the same page with you with the deliverables. It shouldn't be like the person is expecting a flyer with so much egos and like tender fires everywhere, and you are going to design something very minimal for them. Read it back to them, all the deliverables that you agreed on. Make sure you're on the same page so that it won't be a problem for the two of you. If you do this, trust me, it's going to save you a lot of revision torture. That change this, do this for me. It will save you from that a lot. Mistake number 2: overusing effect and font. I believe this is something that is mostly talked about. But you can't blame yourself so much because you just started learning. You just watch a tutorial where somebody used the shadow effect, somebody used like a brush effect. You just got exposed to that. In your next design, you try to use it. And this normally comes because if you're a self-taught person like myself, you mostly practice from watching tutorials and like doing, okay? So the moment you see that effect, you want to throw it into your next design. But that is a very huge mistake that you have to avoid. Let me explain. In as much as it's very cool to let us know that you know a lot of effect and a lot of fonts, it is very prudent that you also understand that making your design less clumsy, minimal, keeping it very simple is also very important. So here are a few things that you can do. Stick to at least like 2 or 3 fonts, maximum 3 fonts. But on a very normal day, go with 2 fonts so that you don't need to even stress with so many fonts. On the subject of effects, nobody is really against you using shadows or stroke or anything. But what we are trying to say here is that keep them very minimal, keep them very subtle, because of course less is more. You don't want your effect to take over the message that you're actually communicating. So even if you want to use them, make sure that they are very minimal. And don't forget this: good design isn't about showing off all the tools, telling us that you know everything that is in Photoshop or Illustrator or any other design tool that you use. But instead, it's about knowing when to use them. So knowing when to use the shadow to create more focus, knowing when to use the stroke to bring out or make a text stand out, knowing when to use these particular tools. That is what actually makes you a very good designer. Now, let's talk about alignment and spacing. This is one thing that most designers ignore totally. Many people get fixated on learning color theory or learning how to cut off images or anything, learning the blend modes and all. But then you realize that the space between one text to the other, it's like 30% and 70%, which doesn't really make your design look nice. If you really want to kill it with your design, make sure that you're paying attention to spacing, you're paying attention to alignment. And here's a few ways that you can actually get this done. Make sure that you're always using grid. If you're using a software like Photoshop, you can go to view and then set your grids so that you can make sure that things are in position. You can as well use rulers to make sure that your text or the shapes that you set are on the same level. Make use of padding and margins as well. Leave spaces between objects, fonts, and anything on your design. Make sure that your design is aligned and is breathing. If I look at your design and you've got all the colors and the color theory and everything correct, and if I look at your text, one is here, the spacing between your text, one is like 30% spaced out and the other one is like 70% spaced out. It doesn't really speak well of your design. So pay attention to your alignment. Even if possible, zoom in and squint very well to make sure that everything is perfectly aligned. Because the moment you see that your design is having like identity crisis, know that your alignment is not in check. So pay attention to that. Now, this one is going to be a hard take for many designers. Don't design for yourself. Design for the targeted audience. Yes, we understand that you love poppings like myself and you love gradients. You love using effects, the neon effects, anything in your designs. But please, you're not designing for yourself. You are designing for the target audience. You already established from the beginning of this video is that you need to speak thoroughly with the client to get a clear understanding of the people that you're designing for. Make sure that you are really implementing it over here. It's not as if you talk to them on one end that you're going to do this. Later on, because you love using popping so much, you're going to use popping throughout the design. You see, that inspiration that you saw on Pinterest was purely about like a nightclub flyer. You're not going to use that to design a perfume flyer, right? So here's what you do instead. Research your target audience. Are you designing it for kids? Are you designing it for ladies? Are you designing it for gents? What do they like? What do they expect? What are the colors that they are most intrigued with? Research into this so that it can well inform you on the target audience. Yes, you love purple so much, you love pink so much, you're a pinky girl, you're a pinky designer, but then you are not designing for yourself, you are designing for the target audience. So make sure that you research into them. Also, another thing you can do is you can study other brands or study other inspirations from Pinterest, from Instagram, from Behance, any place that you can get ideas from. Take them, study them, know the patterns of your target audience. This is even going to make your work so easy. And yes, don't forget that you're designing with purpose and not personal preference. For all you know, the best designers out there balance creativity with empathy. So everything shouldn't just be about you. And another big blow, feedback. Not getting feedback or taking it personally. See, I learned this the very hard way. Feedback isn't an attack. Whatever way the person decides to present it, it could be like a very genuine criticism or a very harsh insult. However the person decides to present it, I want you to understand as a beginner and put it at the back of your mind that feedback is not an attack. Instead, it's part of the process. We all made a bunch of mistakes. We all did like some works that if you see some of them today, you're going to laugh a lot. But then you see, that is what makes your story beautiful. That is what makes the journey beautiful. So if you make something not so nice or you make something in the wrong direction and people start coming at you, the best that you can do is to welcome all the feedback and learn as much as possible from it. You can ignore the insults and the backlash and those things. Just don't see them as the person don't like you or they are attacking you personally. But instead, any little thing that you can learn from it, learn from it. So here are a few things that you can do to avoid some of these things. Intentionally ask for feedback. Post your work. It can be in design groups or non-design groups. I'm going to speak more on this because sometimes one of the mistakes that we also do is that we only ask our design friends who seem to kind of see from our perspective, and because of that, we are not going to really point out any match corrections. Go to your friends, the non-designers. They see from a different perspective. They are the end users, the actual end users. Ask for feedback from them. They are going to be very genuine with you because your fellow designer might actually see from the same angle as you are seeing it, but the end user out there who has no clue about design might have a very different perspective. So ask for feedback from both designers and non-designers. Also, I've been saying this: join groups, Facebook groups, Telegram groups, WhatsApp groups. Join as many as possible so that you can put in your works there to get feedback, or you can learn from the feedbacks that you are giving to other people. We learn every day, we learn everywhere. So make it a point to do that. Also, don't be defensive. You see, sometimes the feedback, the criticisms can be so harsh and so much that it automatically puts you on defense mode. Some of you are living your life in defense mode. Anything that somebody will say, you are going to try as much as possible to find a negative in it. Don't do that. If you do that, you're not going to grow. If you do that, you're not going to learn. So, like I mentioned earlier, even if someone is insulting you, the best thing you can do is to either ignore it or see the light in what they are written. You can be so much in defense mode to the extent that even when somebody is genuinely criticizing you, you might see it as an offense or you might take it as an insult. And because of that, you're not going to actually learn anything from that. So the next time anybody leaves like a feedback or something or a critique or anything on your design, you might actually want to ask them why they feel that way or why they feel something is off with this design or the thing that you posted. Also, understand that revisions are upgrades and not insults. There are times we work for clients, and when they get back to us that they want a revision or something, we automatically feel like they're making us feel like we don't know what we are doing. But sometimes I've said this earlier on that if you sit back well and you really pay attention to what the person is saying, at the end of the day, you might actually realize that they are correct. They are right. Okay. So when clients get back to us with revisions, you should try to understand it from the point of view that it's an upgrade. Maybe we are just leveling up the design. You can offer your professional advice in whatever way you want. But if the clients sometimes insist that you take off the text, you bold in the font or you make it pop, maybe you just consider it and upgrade it for them. So yeah, those are 5 mistakes that I noticed that most beginners make and how you can dodge them like a creative ninja. Which one of these mistakes can you resonate to, and which one of them do you think it's so helpful to you? Also, if you've observed any of these mistakes that creatives normally make, you can put them in the comments so that we all can learn. If this video really does well, maybe you can do a part 2, 5 more mistakes that designers make. So let me just know. And if you leave your comments and I'm doing a part 2, it might actually get featured in that video as well. So yeah, that's it. If you just started, make sure that you give yourself some grace. The most important thing is that you are learning, you are growing every single day. You don't need to be beating yourself up too much and you don't need to be relaxing too much as well. If you found this video helpful, subscribe to this channel will be so very much appreciated. Thank you so very much for sticking around to watch this video, and I'll see you guys in the next video. It's Innocent here, and bye.